Back at Rob's place, taking a look at the Victress S1, which is being built for Jack Farr, and we've got Geoff here. Rob is off camera currently. I'm just gonna do a little walk around the car and ask Geoff some questions about it, get some answers, and give you guys a bit of an overview of the history specific to this car and specific to the Victress S1s in general. So Geoff, this is a question I asked you before. What's the difference between the Victress S1 and the Victress S1A?
Can you hear me from there?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it'll pick it up.
Well, this one should be an S1A. The first 25 or so were S1s. And according to the folks at Victress, they are a little bit longer wheelbase. Initially, the Victress S1 was a 102-inch wheelbase to emulate a Jaguar XK 120 from the late 1940s and early 1950s. Same thing with the Glass Par. Glass Pars had 102. But Victress, in about 1953, moved the wheelbase a little bit shorter to align themselves with the Curtis chassis, the KK500 that Frank Curtis came out with in 53, 54, and to hopefully promote sales. And in fact, indeed, we have found Victresses, Wildfires, Glass Pars, Allieds. A surprisingly number of these cars over the years have been found on Curtis chassis, which are torsion bar chassis, really derivative of an Indianapolis race car. So they're a terrific chassis from that era. You know, a modern chassis would be something different, a little bit better, but torsion bar chassis, it has the legacy of being race car royalty for America in the post-war.
Great. All right. So what's the deal with this one? This was a fully complete car at one point, so now it's sort of going under its second build, effectively?
This was found by a friend of mine up in the Northeast in New York, and I think it was in Pennsylvania. I could have that be reversed, but all indications, we don't know the original builder, but all indications are that it was built in the Northeast. And never in magazines, never recognized, no photos. We never found the family, so we can't ask to see if there were photos of the original build and how it was built back then. But what's cool about it is we've already started the restoration. The current owner is Jack Farr. And Jack, when we found the car, Jack wanted to purchase and restore it. And so one of our team members, Ralph Smith, who's restored a number of cars for Undiscovered Classics, started and went through and pulled the body off the chassis. That's easier on a 60-year-old car when they made it out of wood, because after 60 years, the wood is not wood anymore, is it?
No.
Much softer in most cases. So things generally come apart easily, and then you've got to address how to put them back professionally in a way that both is quick and also safe.
Now,
so in this case, we haven't got to that point yet. Rob Hernandez, who's here, will be putting, Rob, you're putting the body on permanently, I think, right? Yes. On this one, right. So in that case, there's at least 8 points of contact, 4 in the cockpit, 2 in the trunk, and often the wheel wells, or some fashion of that, with a couple contact points in the front on a Victress and all cars actually. This Victress is an S1A, should have a 99-inch wheelbase. It has the doors. You could order them with floors from Victress. You could order them with doors. You could order them with hoods and trunks. So it has the full Monty here. The lights indicate probably a 1948 Pontiac round taillights, and not 4950. 4950 is symmetrical. It looks pretty much the same, but 48 Pontiacs, there's two different, the torpedo and the streamliner. Each one has a higher top than the bottom, so they fit the curvature of a Grantham Stardust, of a Meteor, of a Byers, of a Victress, and other cars. Most people don't know that, and they don't use the 48, or they use the reproduction 4950, which is fine. You build a little pedestal out. So in this case, you can see a much more modern tank. Ralph has already restored the whole chassis, got the car running with a flathead. You got the nice banjo rear end in the back, and a modern gas tank, because we want our cars to run. We want our cars, it's often our restorations are one of balancing practicality, beauty, as well as affordability. So in this case, I like the holes.
Yeah, the hinges are great.
Does it unlock and oh my God, good. I like
It's
that.
giving me ideas for my build. Is Jack planning to keep the side exit exhaust, or is he going to take it out the back? Do you know?
Let's see. The side exit before the rear wheel?
Yeah.
Actually, that was put in by Ralph.
Oh, great.
So a lot of times we exit, and they would have done that in the 50s. There was nothing wrong with that. Some people don't want to do it for whatever reason. In our case, we exit a lot of them just before the rear wheel. We could go to the back if someone wanted to. On Guy Durkin's Victress, we brought the exhaust all the way back, but as it had been originally built through the ports or the nacelles.
Ah, that's right. I remember that
one of the car. Now, what makes this really cool is if you come back over here for just a second, Rob's going to open that up. This is a car that was found with a column stick shift for a Ford flathead, and we've restored that. We've actually shortened the wheel to make it more drivable too. We being Ralph Smith. And you can see now that you're focused on the Ford Flathead. Probably, make sure which one this is.
239.
239, I'm just looking for, there's the distributor. Okay, so it's a 49 to 53, somewhere in there, 239 cubic inches, and it's the more modern with the distributor up front, the typical one. So if you pop over there, the older flatheads have a crab distributor, something on the very front here. We often, over time, we've learned to change the alternators. This is an updated alternator to look like a generator, kind of. Certainly doesn't look like a perfect example, but this is what they do to make it look like a generator, but it really is an alternator, which just gives us much better performance electrically. Brand new fuel pump, right?
Right.
Man, brand new fuel pump.
Everything brand new. Carburetor.
Everything carburetor is brand new and so forth. So, electric fans we often put on all our cars. Shows usually have no problem with making it run cooler, making it run more consistent, and also stopping the car. So upgrading brakes is often not a problem, neither is electric fans.
Now, are you generally putting those electric fans on a switch, or do they kick on after a certain temperature?
It just depends on what the person, each owner wants something differently. I think, I don't see why they shouldn't be running all the time. When I put them on a switch myself, I'm not that smart. I forget to turn them on, forget to turn them off. So key starts, key activation is fine. What would you do, Rob? Key activation or switch?
Right, key with the key on the ignition.
Yeah, just kind of idiot proof. Jeff's proof.
Especially being in Florida, it's heat is a major factor.
Yeah. But you can see some of the original build in here. If you look in, they actually put louvers on the side, which is kind of cool.
I noticed that, yeah.
And I think probably on this side too. Yeah, louvers on the side. I'd probably leave that if I were Jack. I think that's kind of a neat homage to the heritage. In some cases, with this is rotten or is this good? Well, are you going to keep some of that or all of it or none of it?
A lot of it.
A lot of that, but the floor itself is rotten.
Yeah, the floor I replaced, but I'm gonna try to keep whatever's salvageable for the authenticity.
Gotcha. And you can see the frame has all been sandblasted and painted underneath there. So the body is just sitting on this chassis right now, waiting Rob to anchor the body to the chassis. You can see new brake pedals and all new master, new wheel cylinders, new brake lines, new exhaust, new, everything.
And now, what was the first year you could order these from Victress?
1952 they came out. They were produced by Victress through 61. Ladari bought the company in 61 and produced it as the Vixen or the Cheetah. I can't remember which one. One was the small version, one was the large version, Vixen and Cheetah. I think it was the Cheetah, but they sold, I don't know, 10 or 20. We got the logbooks for that. And typically, Victresses are always hand laid, and typically a Ladari built Victress is always chopper gut. So that's one way you could tell the difference. There weren't any differences in production that we know of, but this is full-blown Victress, hand laid glass, nice heavy body.
And now, of the two designers that were at Victress, which of them was the designer of the S1A?
The S1A was designed by both Hugh Jorgensen, who was an art center student, and Doc Boy Smith back in 1952. The heritage of the design comes from the 1939 BMW Bugle Falte Mille Miglia car, which they made 3 of which one almost looked just like the Victress down to the crease at the top of the fenders. But as I remember, the crease is called the trouser crease, pants crease, which is where Bugle Falte comes from, trouser crease at the top. So if you sand this crease off, you lose some of the actual heritage of that car. And that's the crease at the very, very top of the fenders and back there.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Don't sand it off or build it back up.
Now, what was the tagline for these? To out-jag the Jag or something like that?
Said that Hugh Jorgensen and Doc Boy Smith wanted to design the car that would out-jag the Jag, meaning get people's attention in design and beauty. So instead of slab sides, which an XK120 was, it's a curvaceous side, curves. Instead of a grill in a upright position or a vertical, they went with a horizontal grill, and so forth.
Now, I remember on Guy's Victress, the Lost Motor Trend Victress, that it had the double scoop. Is the scoop we're seeing on here an original Victress scoop? Okay.
And the other one should have been factory too, but the second scoop they added on Guy's at the very end.
Right.
I don't even know why.
It's unique. It helped you identify it, right? That was sort of the clincher.
I'm not sure why. I never saw. I don't really. People had problems with Ford's flatheads overheating. They say I've never had any. I don't know what's going on.
Now, I know on a lot of these, and I guess this must be the exception to it, maybe this is just because of the chassis it's on not being on a Corvette chassis. From what you've told me, you've got to lean the radiator back to clear it. Now, this one looks like it's pretty well straight. Is that a result of the body size, the chassis being used, or?
Some of the cars have a more inclined front end, like a Buyers. and oftentimes it comes down further. There's a lot of space on this. Before this starts coming down, it's pretty much straight up to about here. There's a lot of space here. If you get a big radiator, then what happens is it goes closer and closer to the ground. And we've had more than one car. I'm trying to remember. I know the Seedler's one of them. The bottom of the radiator can be so low that it looks like it's sweeping the streets. And that's never a good thing. So luckily, radiators these days, you can get them in all sorts of sizes and shapes. And they cool really well. You put an electric fan on it, you're good to go. So we haven't had problems, but we had to get creative sometimes in where we put them.
All right.
How they're inclined, sometimes leaning back, sometimes, hopefully always in a vertical position.
Now, does Jack have any finish plans in mind yet? Paint color, windshield use, interior?
Red with a windscreen that's curvaceous, kind of like a wraparound windscreen, red with side pipes.
Great. Now I see we do have post locations for what are these? The windshield stanchions? That's what they're called?
We won't be using the Victress windshield according to Jack. He wants to use and we have a mold that was used by Steve Steers that he's lending us, so we can actually do another replica of the Steve Steers mold for the windshield.
Oh, great.
With exactly the same contours in shape and size.
That's a really clean look. Okay. And then any idea for what general style for the interior he's planning or color scheme for that? So red exterior.
Interiors are always, to me, simple. And Jack, I think, takes the same philosophy. And there's carpet, vinyl doors, 2 vinyl seats, or leather. Some guys want to go with leather, and you're done. The dashboard's different. I think Ralph already built the dashboard for this, didn't he? Yeah. We don't have it here, do we?
No.
Is he going to do a machine turn finish? Because I know that's pretty.
If he did build it, it's which I think he did. He kept it though, huh? I don't want to see it right now. It's not. It's machine engine turn.
Engine turn. Thank you.
And with Stuart Warner vintage reproduction gauges.
Yeah, I see Stuart Warner on a lot of these. Is that? It seems like it's the go-to. Was there another brand that was ubiquitous for that era? Is Stuart Warner pretty much it?
People will often. This one was found with its own dashboard. They would have picked up that from the donor cars, but in restoring them, we often go with a very simple, clean, elegant design engine turn dashboard and the Stuart Warner vintage gauges. We try to keep the dashboards as part of the original history. If it's a famous car, which would have been photographed back in the era which this was not, then often we'll reproduce the dash.
Okay.
Or, restore the dash.
Great. Well, thanks for the info, Jeff. This is going to be quite the finished project. And what is the timeline for its completion? And is there a special debut plan for it? Is it going anywhere specific once it's done?
It may make its debut at Jack's new car show. It's called the Handbill Auto Show in Crescent, Texas in September 2023, next year. It might. That's what hopefully you'll be planning. You'll have it painted this year, this coming year?
Yes.
Yeah, so it should all be done by early spring, I would say. Upholstery, paint, any finishing, right? So here we're missing the cap on the axle for the grease, so I think the open grease probably has to be fixed. Let's see and that may be Rob, that could be Ralph again. We'll put the other side. But there's still work to be done on the car.
So tell the good viewers at home a little bit about Jack Farr, because I know a lot about Jack based on what you've told me, but I know Jack has purchased several American specials. He's got a museum, racetrack, a bunch of stuff in Texas, so he'll have a pretty good collection of these cars.
You can look him up. Jack owns Motorsport Ranch in Crescent, Texas, and it's got 2 country club race course where people can have their home or a second home at the track and race on the weekends or race when the times are open. He also has a company called Drive Exotic, where you can rent a Ferrari, Maserati, take it on the track and have some fun with it. They bring you through the normal schools and qualifications first to make sure you're not going to kill yourself. But Jack is all about automotive and creativity. He fell in love with the idea that people would build their own sports cars in the 50s, and I've been helping Jack to amass a collection of restored cars, of which we've debuted 1 or 2 at Amelia already, and he's purchased some that already had been at Amelia.